let's take a look at what Dana Bash had to say about Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris. But in order to get the full effect of Dana Bash's comments, let's take a look at the interview that she is referring to, which is an interview that Bernie Sanders did on CNN.
You just heard President Biden delivering that address, and at the end of it, saying that he has made his pick and endorsing Vice President Harris to succeed him. You have yet to endorse her. Are you prepared to do so tonight?
I'm going to work as hard as I can to see that Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in American history, is defeated, and that Kamala Harris is, in fact, the next president of the United States. But before I make a formal announcement, I just want to make certain that the vice president is going to be campaigning on issues that the working class of this country, a working class that has long been forgotten, needs to hear. And I want to just make sure that the vice president will be working with President Biden and with me and others to demand that the wealthiest people in this country start paying their fair share of taxes, that when we have 50% of our elderly people living on $30,000 a year or less, that we expand Social Security benefits by lifting the cap on taxable income so the rich start paying their fair share. I want to hear her be strong in contrasting herself with Trump and making it clear that we have got to save this planet from climate change, that we're pro-union, make it easier for workers to join union, that we raise the minimum wage to a living wage, that we deal with the fact that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. So we got to start focusing on issues that working class people desperately need to hear when 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and too many elderly people, too many kids are living in poverty.
Okay, so he makes those comments, and then later on in the interview, she says that Trump has, for Trump, of course, coming from Trump, tried to smear Kamala Harris by saying she's more liberal than Bernie. Bernie says that's not accurate. He doesn't brag about it. He's actually probably trying to help Kamala Harris. Now let's look at the way Dana Bash reacted to this interview.
Dana, it sounds like Senator Sanders is on board, but just wants to make sure he gets on to the vice president's schedule at some point in the next few days.
Okay, first of all, that makes it seem like it's a personal thing, that Bernie really wants to make sure that Kamala meets with him, like it's some weird power play. That after Bernie made it very clear that he cares about the substance of her campaign and her promises, okay? But of course, these people project their own pettiness onto Bernie Sanders and laugh at him. And also look at Dana Bash's contemptuous face.
Schedule at some point in the next few days.
There's a few things he wants to talk to her about, but honestly, he doesn't maybe need to endorse.
There's a few things he wants to talk to her about, like, higher wages for working people and healthcare and elderly people having enough money to live. These are all like trivial things that Bernie wants to talk about.
Yeah.
He's trying to save people's lives and livelihoods. And she's like, there's a few things. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. He really wants to sit. He really wants to, like, it's like he's trying to corner her or something. Yeah. Just livelihoods, life and death, the planet's survival, petty things like that.
Because telling the world that she is not as liberal as he is maybe the best campaign statement that he could give to her right now, when she is, of course, she has to shore up her base, but she really also needs to appeal to independents and others who are going to get beyond that.
Independents who liked Bernie Sanders, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many Trump voters who said they would have voted for Bernie in 2016 because Trump pretended to be anti-establishment and to want to drain the swamp. But these people have such contempt for working people that they think Bernie's like doing Kamala a favor by basically saying that, no, she's more centrist than I am. She accepts the neoliberal consensus that we all worship. When that's not even what he was trying to say. He was trying to say that, she doesn't have policies that, or she hasn't expressed policies yet that are pro-worker enough. And he wants to hear her do that. But they have to teach us into a lesson that, like, centrism, as it's called, centrism, which really just means right wing, is always the path.
Right. And they also have so much contempt for the progressive base, who they clearly don't think Kamala has to speak to at all.
No, of course not.
I mean, they're so primed to try to appeal to the suburban moms who Chuck Schumer said that they'd be catering to. And of course, the way he said it, it was like he wasn't attacking Harris. He was trying to be diplomatic. He was basically trying to encourage her to stake out a more progressive, pro working class position. And these people just see it as like a popularity contest. And yeah, they're so gross.
All right. Well, let's turn to Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader. Now, there are some Democrats who are frustrated because they have a new candidate in Kamala Harris who, has excited some people, a lot of people actually, but still she did so after being coronated the nominee and not winning it through a primary process, which was denied to primary voters because they told us that Joe Biden was going to be the nominee. And then, of course, now he's not. But Hakeem Jeffries begs to differ, and he believes actually that Kamala Harris's coronation as the nominee was, in fact, a grassroots victory.
Kamala Harris and her candidacy has excited and energized the House Democratic Caucus, the Democratic Party, and the nation. Vice President Harris has earned the nomination from the grassroots up and not the top down.
I beg to differ, Hakeem Jeffries. This is not quite a bottom-up grassroots process. Literally, there was no primary that was explicitly denied to voters, basically. There was no competition. There were no debates. And Kamala Harris was just anointed the new leader because enough Democratic elites like her and enough Democratic elites didn't like Joe Biden anymore. So you can say she's a great candidate if you want to. You can say that she's exciting. And I mean, certainly, personally, I think anybody is better than Joe Biden. I think this is a great move by Democrats. But to say this was a grassroots victory when this was like one of the most undemocratic things I've ever seen in politics, I think that's a stretch.
Maybe he's like a really bad sense of direction. So he thinks it's like from the bottom up. Maybe maybe he's being honest. He just really is bad with directions. Yeah.
Yeah. In which case the egg would be on our face because we'd be making somebody with, like a spatial. A spatial like disability or like a just a lack of cognition there when it comes to awareness when it comes to direction. So if that's the case, then I apologize to Hakeem Jeffries.
Right.
But exactly. I somehow doubt it.
Yeah. If we're being ableist, then apologies. Yeah. That's on us.
Somebody who's very moved by Joe Biden giving up the nomination after insisting he would only step down if the Lord Almighty told him to is Van Jones, who has been shedding some tears on CNN over Joe Biden bowing to the Democratic Party elite's revolt and standing down. And here is Van Jones with his latest lament and tribute to Joe Biden's supposed courage.
The heart is still there. And I think people need to look at this because you had somebody sitting in that chair and he wouldn't give up power no matter what. Wouldn't give up power, let there be an insurrection, wouldn't get out of that chair. Even when the people voted for you to get out the chair, he wouldn't get out the chair. And you got somebody who's sitting in that same chair showing that character does matter, showing that you can have grace, you can put the people first, you can pass the baton, and you're a bigger person for it. You're going to be more loved for it. So you've got two examples now of what men with power do and how they act at the end. And you couldn't act any better than Joe Biden. That kid with the stutter grew up. He did a great job for this country, and he's doing a great job tonight. And I love it.
All right, Van Jones. I mean, this needs a fact check. First of all, Joe Biden insisted he was staying in the race. Again, he said only the Lord Almighty or his doctor telling him he has a fatal condition could get him to drop out. And finally, when he realized that there were enough Democratic elites who were pulling their money and enough lawmakers who didn't support him anymore, that's when he finally threw in the towel, when he realized he had no more viable path. But now to pretend as if Joe Biden had this like epiphany and he decided he wanted to pass the baton and engage in this noble gesture, it's just like it's right in front of our face. He did nothing of the sort. And Van Jones is still so moved by it. It's like he's living on a different planet.